Chapter 51. 51, Reflex. You are listening at Novel Full. Audio. Chapter 51. Reflex Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation. Sun, who felt that Jing Mo was acting unusually today, he hadn't said a word throughout the journey. Although Jing Mo usually remained silent in the car, there was an especially heavy atmosphere today. With a tone of certainty, Sun Hu said, "You're treating Xia Xian differently. Could it be that you've fallen for her?" No, Jing Mo immediately denied it. Sun Hu's gaze became teasing and said, "Looks like you have. Come clean. What happened between you two while I was away?" Jing Mo had initially been resting his eyes, but he suddenly opened them, his narrow eyes fixed on Sun Hu. Sun Hu felt a chill down his spine, a wave of murderous intent washing over him. He shut up immediately. However, after only half a minute of silence, curiosity got the better of him. He continued, "Jing Mo, we've known each other for almost 10 years. There's nothing about your life or the people you know that I don't know. Did you and Xia Xian know each other 10 years ago?" Jing Mo didn't answer. Instead, his gaze drifted out of the window, rejecting conversation. Meanwhile, Xia Xian was still contemplating why she had suddenly sensed the falling rock. If Jing Mo hadn't brought it up, she would have overlooked this detail. Xia Xian speculated, could the newly added attribute, reflex, from the system upgrade refer to the ability to perceive danger? If that were the case, this reflex attribute was truly a significant enhancement. In the future, I would become increasingly sensitive to danger. Not only could I avoid trouble for myself, but I could also timely help others before accidents happened. It was indeed a multi-faceted advantage. Xia Xian's phone suddenly began to receive a series of messages, so she quickly checked it. Zhao Nan had sent her over a dozen WeChat messages, asking about her current whereabouts, and how her wound was being treated, and her tone in typing was filled with urgency. Before Xia Xian could reply to the messages, Zhao Nan's call came in. Anxiously, she asked, "Xian, how's your arm? Is it serious? Where are you now? Why haven't I seen you backstage? Send me your location, and I'll come find you." Xia Xian smiled and said, "You're bombarding me with so many questions at once. Which one should I answer first?" Zhao Nan wasn't in the mood for jokes and said, "The filming has ended. Where are you now?" "I'm coming to find you." Xia Xian replied, "Don't worry. It's just a scratch and nothing serious. The wound has been treated. You can go to the rest area in the panda enclosure and wait for me. There was an issue with the rockery, and I need to discuss it with the director." Zhao Nan was very worried about Xia Xian but didn't want to disrupt her work, so she could only follow Xia Xian's arrangement. Xia Xian also reminded Zhao Nan to bring Lael and Slowpoke from backstage to the rest area in the panda enclosure. When Zhao Nan was packing up to leave, Su Ji suddenly called out to her, "Miss Zhao Nan, wait a moment." If it weren't for her concern about Xia Xian's arm, Zhao Nan, who was normally indifferent to star power, would have been ecstatic to be addressed by her idol's name. At this moment, Zhao Nan would have been ready to jump up with excitement and record this moment for posterity, sharing it on various social media platforms. However, Zhao Nan quickly came to her senses and asked, "Wait a minute, what did you just call me?" Su Ji blinked his bright, clear eyes at Zhao Nan. He said, "Yeah, is there a problem? Don't tell me you have forgotten about me too." Zhao Nan looked at Su Ji's handsome face so close to hers, and couldn't help but gulp, cursing her bad luck secretly. While doing so, she extended her arm, creating some distance between them, and said, "Let's just talk. Don't get so close." Su Ji looked somewhat dejected. He obediently stepped back and then explained the incident of moving luggage to Zhao Nan. Zhao Nan still vividly remembered that luggage-moving incident. She exclaimed in surprise, "It was you." The next scene was about to be shot. The assistant director came to urge Su Ji onto the stage. As Su Ji was leaving, he instructed Zhao Nan, after today's recording is done, I'll treat you and Xia Xin to dinner. Wait for me at the back door of the zoo. Make sure to wait for me. Su Ji emphasized that with concern. Zhao Nan nodded blankly. Having dinner with her idol and Xia Xin was something that would make any fan in the entire fandom envious. It felt like a dream come true. Zhao Nan couldn't help but feel very lucky today. After treating her wound, Xia Xin went straight to the office of the zoo director to explain the situation. Lu Yuan saw Xia Xin and was very concerned about her wound. After confirming that it had been properly bandaged, he discussed the main topic. Chapter 52. 52, Clearing Misunderstandings. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 52. Clearing Misunderstandings. Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation. Lu Yuan told Xia Xin solemnly, Xin, this time the falling rock might not have been accidental. Surprised, Xia Xin asked, did you notice something strange about it? Lu Yuan showed Xia Xin the on-site photos of the incident. He said, look at the edges of these rocks. There are clear marks of axe cuts. If it were a natural fracture, the cut wouldn't be so clean. Xia Xin carefully observed the edges of the rocks and indeed saw the white marks left by the friction between the axe and the stone. She thought, who would intentionally damage the rockery? Could it be to halt the production of the show? Xia Xin knew that the entertainment industry had many unknown insider dealings. There were often behind-the-scenes actions taken to hinder someone's progress. However, only the employees of the zoo who had access to the animal enclosures and knew the exact shooting schedule could be involved in this. Xia Xin looked at Lu Yuan, and it was clear that he had the same thoughts. Lu Yuan asked, do you have any suspects in mind? Shaking her head, Xia Xin replied, I've been responsible for the snub-nosed monkey enclosure all along. If there's a suspicious person, the first person to be suspected would definitely be me. Lu Yuan responded, you treat Slowpoke with such care. You wouldn't do anything that might harm him. So, I believe it couldn't be you. Thank you for trusting me, Mr. Lu. The priority now is to find out who this vandal is and hand them over to the police for investigation. Xia Xin said. Lu Yuan put away the photos on the table and instructed Xia Xin, you can go rest now. I'll give you a day off tomorrow. I'll personally check the zoo's surveillance footage and make sure to find the person responsible. After dealing with matters on this end, Xia Xin went to the rest area in the panda enclosure to find Zhao Nan. Just as she entered, she saw two figures rushing toward her. One was Zhao Nan, anxiously checking Xia Xin's wound, and the other was Lail, excitedly seeing his owner. Lail had been circling around Xia Xin's feet and playfully tapping her calves with his tail, indicating that he wanted to be picked up. However, Xia Xin was currently being pulled by Zhao Nan to check the wound, so she couldn't divert her attention. Seeing that the wound was properly bandaged, Zhao Nan finally felt relieved and said, you scared me. Next time you encounter danger, just tell us to leave quickly. Don't rush towards it. Or better yet, let's avoid having it next time. Xia Xin comforted Zhao Nan with a smile and said, I was too anxious at that moment and didn't think things through. Plus, it's just a minor scratch. Don't worry. Xia Xin intentionally used this opportunity to resolve the misunderstanding between them. So, she playfully teased Zhao Nan, you were mad at me, right? Now that you're showing concern, why aren't you continuing to be angry? Only then did Zhao Nan recall that she was still angry at Xia Xin. She pouted, turned her back, and ignored her. Xia Xin coaxed her, saying, all right, don't be mad anymore. I was just kidding. If you're mad at me, you should at least tell me the reason, right? That's the only way we can resolve things. Zhao Nan sighed, I just feel that you've become so popular now, with so many fans. Everyone likes you a lot. Our worlds are different now, and with your popularity, you'll naturally make new friends and won't care about me anymore. Pretending to be upset, Xia Xian said, who told you all this nonsense? Regardless of how many people I know, you will always be my most important friend. That's something that won't change. How can you doubt our friendship over these trivial matters? Zhao Nan felt wronged and said, it's because of what Zhang Liang told me. He specifically delivered something to you on my behalf and saw you with a man. That man even let a dog bite him. That's why I got angry. Xia Xian knew that it must be Zhang Liang trying to create misunderstandings. She was very angry and asked Zhao Nan, what exactly did Zhang Liang say to you? Tell me everything. Zhao Nan hesitated, but eventually spilled everything. Zhang Liang said that you're a big internet celebrity now, and wherever you go, people will be watching you. He said you wouldn't care about us friends anymore, so I should keep my distance from you to save myself from embarrassment. He's just talking nonsense. Xia Xian exclaimed as she clenched her fists in anger, her eyes filled with the desire to immediately give Zhang Liang a good beating. Chapter 53. 53, A Dinner. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 53. A Dinner. Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation. Xia Xian exclaimed in annoyance, last time Zhang Liang came to see me, he didn't bring anything at all. And him getting bitten by the dog was his own fault. He's just trying to shift the blame and sow discord between us. Someone like him isn't worth your affection. Yet you're still stubbornly going after him. Hearing her best friend speak ill of her boyfriend Zhang Liang, Zhao Nan felt somewhat uncomfortable. She didn't quite understand why these two always seemed to be at odds, making her feel stuck in the middle. Zhao Nan changed the subject, Xia Xian, now that the misunderstanding is cleared, let's not dwell on it. Tonight, Su Ji invited us to dinner. Let's think about where to eat. Xia Xian could tell that Zhao Nan didn't want to discuss Zhang Liang further, so she didn't press the matter and went along with the change of topic. She said, the guest should follow the host's lead. We'll go where Su Ji arranges. That evening, Su Ji had his agency send a car to pick Xia Xian and Zhao Nan up and take them to a high-end restaurant. The restaurant had excellent security measures. To reach the interior of the restaurant, they had to walk through a landscaped area. Rows of bamboo were planted around the private room, serving as sound barriers to ensure a tranquil environment without any disturbances. However, this serene ambience was a bit at odds with Su Ji's lively personality. Even when Su Ji himself entered the private room, he seemed somewhat uneasy. Zhao Nan teasingly remarked, the whole internet knows you don't like overly quiet places. Why did you choose this restaurant? Su Ji helplessly replied, my agent made the reservation. He said eating here would minimize the chances of paparazzi catching us. It's safer this way. Zhao Nan was a fan of Su Ji and understood the importance of maintaining an artist's image. She fully grasped the reasoning behind the agent's choice and said, you're a popular rising star now. If paparazzi caught you privately meeting fans, who knows what kind of scandal they'd spin. Su Ji chuckled dismissively and said, both of you, hurry up and order. Today's dinner is my way of thanking you for helping me move my stuff back then. Xia Xian jokingly responded, your thank you dinner is a bit delayed, isn't it? Ever since Zhao Nan found out that the idol she had admired for 2 years was actually the freshman she had once helped, there was a layer less of an idol. Filter in her interactions with Su Ji. So, she didn't get as starstruck as most fans would when they meet their idols. While eating, Zhao Nan curiously asked Su Ji, we barely exchanged a few words that day, yet after 2 years, you still remembered us. How come? Su Ji flashed his trademark smile, his rows of dazzling white teeth making one's eyes dazzle, and said, because other people, after seeing me with such heavy luggage, only pointed me towards the dormitory and left. It was only you two who were so enthusiastic and helped me with my bags. Thinking of those several huge bags of luggage that they struggled with for a week, Zhao Nan and Xia Xian rolled their eyes inwardly. They had truly been fooled by Su Ji's innocent appearance back then. Unconsciously rubbing her waist, Xia Xian asked, "So, what did you bring to the dorm right after the semester started?" "We had to move 3 times to finish carrying everything." With an innocent look in his eyes, Su Ji earnestly counted on his fingers and said, "Oh, many things. Clothes for all 4 seasons, blankets, because the dorm bed was so small and hard, I found it uncomfortable, so I brought extra blankets to put under me. Then there were my model figures. If I left them at home, my parents would have thrown them away for sure. So, I had to carry them around. Also, a whole box of books I usually read." "That's enough, you don't need to continue," said Zhao Nan. She and Xia Xian listened with their heads spinning. Apparently, they had been the real suckers in this situation. With a playful smile, Su Ji looked at Zhao Nan and said, "Zhao Nan, you probably don't know, but later I heard you were the president of the badminton club. I even applied to join the club, but I haven't had a chance to interview yet." Excitedly, Zhao Nan exclaimed, "If I had known, would have scheduled the interview a few days earlier. Maybe I could have met you." Su Ji nodded and asked, "I also knew you were majoring in cultural industry management at the time. What do you do for a living now? Are you a manager?" Embarrassedly, Zhao Nan replied, "Sort of." Zhao Nan had just graduated this year and had faced numerous obstacles in her job search. Originally, she had hoped to work as a manager and get closer to idols, but due to her limited experience, she had to settle for starting as an assistant. Continuing the conversation, Su Ji said, "The company is planning to establish a personal studio for me. When the time comes, you can come to work as my manager at the studio." Chapter 54. 54, Initiating Friendliness. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 54. Initiating Friendliness. Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation. Zhao Nan's eyes brightened. This was a great opportunity for her. She really wanted to take up the offer. Besides, she had been a member of Su Ji's fan support group, so handling Su Ji's work should be well within her capabilities. However, setting up a studio would take at least a few months of preparation, and Zhao Nan didn't want to get her hopes up too high. During the rest of the dinner, Zhao Nan and Su Ji discussed the studio's details. The dinner only concluded when Su Ji's agent came to remind him of his schedule on set. Zhao Nan's mood visibly improved after dinner. Xia Xian invited Zhao Nan to stay at her place for the night, and just as they were leaving, Zhao Nan received a call from Zhang Liang, saying he would come to pick them up. As soon as Xia Xian heard that, she knew Zhang Liang was up to something. She suddenly remembered the enchanted puppet she had purchased from the system shop and an idea formed. After studying the usage and effective duration of the enchanted puppet, Xia Xian knew that as long as she spoke the designated person's name to the puppet, that person would gradually lose their ability to move and think. Everything that person did afterward would be determined by the controller of the puppet. The effect lasted for 10 minutes. It was a short time, but Xia Xian thought it was enough for Zhang Liang to reveal the truth. Xia Xian believed that instead of allowing Zhang Liang to keep sowing discord between her and Zhao Nan, she could make him tell the truth using the enchanted puppet. Then, it would be up to Zhao Nan to decide whether to continue her relationship with Zhang Liang. With this plan in mind, Xia Xian unexpectedly suggested, "Nan, it's getting late, and I'm concerned about taking a taxi at this hour. Why don't we let your boyfriend come to pick us up?" Touched, Zhao Nan interpreted this as Xia Xian's way of making amends. From her perspective, Xia Xian was finally no longer pushing Zhang Liang away. On the other end of the phone, Zhang Liang smirked, thinking that Xia Xian was showing weakness by inviting him. He believed she was regretting her closeness to another guy before and wanted to make amends tonight. He immediately rushed to the restaurant. A smug Zhang Liang even opened the passenger door for Xia Xian, trying to get her to sit in the front seat. With a furious glare, Xia Xian stared at him, grabbed Zhao Nan, and directed her to the back seat. Zhang Liang was in high spirits, teasing Zhao Nan with vulgar language during the drive, and occasionally saying disgusting things to Xia Xian. His intentions were clear. Xia Xian felt like she was going to throw up the dinner she just had. She comforted herself, thinking that she just needed to endure a little longer and Zhang Liang would reveal his true colors soon enough. Upon arriving at the residential complex, as Zhao Nan and Xia Xian stepped out of the car, Zhang Liang followed them, asking, "Why didn't you invite me, the driver, to come up for a while?" Zhao Nan wondered why Zhang Liang was so insistent on coming up to Xia Xian's house. However, Xia Xian immediately said, "Of course, I'd invite you. You came all the way to pick us up so late, we should at least invite you up for a cup of tea." After all, Zhang Liang was the highlight of the evening, so Xia Xian couldn't possibly not include him. With Xia Xian's invitation, Zhang Liang grew even more pleased. While Zhao Nan went to the restroom, Zhang Liang intentionally walked up to Xia Xian from behind, getting very close to her. He even let his breath touch her neck, saying, "I knew you still have feelings for me deep down. Otherwise, you wouldn't have invited me to your place." Feeling repulsed, Xia Xian pushed him away and said, "You're reading too much into it. I invited you up out of politeness. Please keep your distance from me." Zhang Liang saw that as a ploy by Xia Xian to keep him interested. He said, "No worries, there's always tomorrow." Although it was the first time Lael had seen Zhang Liang, it could sense that he was harassing its owner. It was extremely angry and disliked him. If it had a tongue, it would have roared at Zhang Liang by now. Since Lael couldn't, it could only glower at Zhang Liang. Ignoring it, Zhang Liang shot it a glance, then suddenly kicked it hard in the belly, sending it tumbling far away. He then returned to the couch. Seeing Lael get kicked made Xia Xian really angry. She held Lael, massaging its belly to soothe it, then took out the puppet and focused on Zhang Liang's image in her mind. The worn-out looking puppet suddenly changed. After about 10 seconds, it actually transformed into Zhang Liang's appearance, even wearing the same clothes he was wearing today. While Zhang Liang was still having tea with Zhao Nan, he suddenly twitched. Zhao Nan asked him, "What's wrong?" Rubbing his temple, Zhang Liang said, "Maybe I'm just tired from driving." "Xia Xian, do you have a room here? How about I stay the night?" Chapter 55. 55. Taking Action. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 55. Taking Action. Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation. As soon as Zhang Liang finished speaking, he suddenly became dazed and lost consciousness. His hand, which had been holding a cup, remained frozen in that position. Xia Xian mentally commanded Zhang Liang to speak the truth. Zhang Liang blinked, as if receiving a command. He put the cup down and looked at Zhao Nan, saying, "Zhao Nan, there's something I've never told you. When I courted you back in university, it was because you were easier to chase, and your best friend was Xia Xian, that's all." Zhao Nan was taken aback by the revelation and was temporarily at a loss for words. Zhang Liang continued, "After being with you, I used your name to harass Xia Xian. However, she's better at playing hard to get than you. Also, that night when you asked me to give something to Xia Xian, I didn't give it to her. I confessed my feelings to her and told her how much I liked her. But she played hard to get. On the surface, she acted annoyed and rejected me, even sending someone to have a dog attack me. But isn't she the one who made a proactive move today? Don't think she's a good person. And don't think too highly of yourself, you're just a toy I play with." Zhang Liang even revealed many things that even Xia Xian didn't know. She didn't expect the enchanted puppet to have this effect, making someone reveal all their truths. She had originally intended to test whether Zhang Liang would confess about hiding things from Zhao Nan. Xia Xian hadn't anticipated such a good outcome. While Xia Xian was lost in thought, she suddenly heard a loud slap. With tears in her eyes, Zhao Nan slapped Zhang Liang's face in anger and said, "Stop it, that's enough." Zhao Nan's slap was forceful, knocking Zhang Liang's head to the side. He took a while to straighten his head. Xia Xian felt something was off, but she attributed it to Zhang Liang being in an unconscious state, causing a delayed reaction, so she didn't think much of it. Suddenly, Zhang Liang frowned and reached to touch his slapped cheek, looking at Zhao Nan. He asked, "Are you fucking crazy?" Xia Xian became alert and thought, Zhao Nan's slap had been too powerful, causing Zhang Liang to wake up prematurely. Xia Xian realized things were turning bad. She quickly moved to protect Zhao Nan. As expected, due to his anger, Zhang Liang raised his hand to hit Zhao Nan. Fortunately, Xia Xian managed to pull her away in time. Zhang Liang wasn't stupid, he realized something was wrong. Under normal circumstances, he wouldn't have spilled these truths, considering he hadn't finished playing with Zhao Nan yet. However, he had seemed to lose consciousness a moment ago, unable to control his body. Without a doubt, he believed that it was because Xia Xian had drugged his drink. Looking at Xia Xian with fury, he cursed, "You damn woman, what did you make me drink?" Xia Xian smirked and said, "Just regular tea to clean up your foul mouth." Zhang Liang's fury turned into a twisted smile. Using his tongue to press against his slapped face, he looked at Xia Xian and Zhao Nan in a deranged manner. He said, "Fine, since you're asking for trouble, don't blame me for taking action." Rg Normally, Zhang Liang acted carefree and had a good temper. He never lost his temper like today, which frightened Zhao Nan. She took 2 steps back and asked, "What are you trying to do?" "What am I trying to do?" "My foolish girlfriend, of course, I'm going to teach you both a lesson," Zhang Liang said as he approached step by step. The sense of danger made both girls very afraid. Xia Xian stood in front of Zhao Nan. Since she bought the 20.4 martial arts technique skill book, she had been practicing its moves every day. Today was the day to put her skills to the test. However, while Xia Xian had become proficient in these moves, she hadn't used them in actual combat. She was a bit nervous despite her familiarity with the techniques, especially with a tall guy like Zhang Liang standing before her. She was pretending to be brave, she couldn't deny she was feeling fear. But to protect Zhao Nan, Xia Xian had to appear calm. Summoning her courage, Xia Xian said, "Nan, stand back a bit. I'm worried that if we start fighting, we might accidentally hurt you." Zhang Liang completely dismissed Xia Xian's attempts at combat. He laughed and said, "It's been a few days, and you've grown bold. Remember that day you begged me for mercy? If that dog hadn't suddenly appeared and ruined my plans, you would have been mine long ago." Chapter 56. 56, A Heroic Rescue. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 56. A Heroic Rescue. Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation. As soon as Zhang Liang spoke, Lael pounced on him, biting his leg. However, Lael was too small to cause any harm. Zhang Liang winced in pain and kicked Lael in the stomach, sending it flying a considerable distance. Xia Xian even saw Lael cough up a mouthful of blood. "Lael!" Xia Xian cried out in anguish at the sight of Lael's injury. Seizing the opportunity while Xia Xian was distracted, Zhang Liang moved in to restrain her. Thankfully, Xia Xian's reflexes were swift. She bent over, evading Zhang Liang's grasp, and simultaneously grabbed his wrist, using her skill to lower his upper body. Xia Xian raised her knee, knocking it against Zhang Liang's head. Blood instantly trickled from his nose. Zhang Liang was thoroughly enraged. He said, "Very well, it seems you've learned something. But do you think this is enough to deal with me?" Zhang Liang lunged at Xia Xian again, but she skillfully used a soft approach to overcome his aggression. After a few rounds of confrontation, Zhang Liang hadn't gained any advantage and was left bruised all over. Fueled by anger, Zhang Liang abandoned any sense of sportsmanship. He grabbed a vase from the table, emptied the flowers from it, and attempted to use the vase to strike Xia Xian. Although Xia Xian had learned combat techniques, she couldn't defend against such a hard object. She used her uninjured elbow to shield her head, but the vase shattered upon impact, and glass shards cut into her arm. The pain left her temporarily incapacitated. As Zhang Liang prepared to strike again, Xia Xian quickly retrieved a bottle of charming elixir from her pocket, intending to incapacitate him and then call the police. In this critical moment, the sound of a dog barking echoed from outside the door, along with the doorbell ringing. Outside, Jing Mo was still hesitating about whether he should disturb Xia Xian so late at night. However, no matter how hard he tried to pull Bobo back home, Bobo's temper remained stubborn. Jing Mo had been walking the dog downstairs when he noticed a car parked outside Xia Xian's building. Two women had gotten out of the car, but he couldn't clearly identify them due to the backlight. Yet, Bobo immediately recognized Xia Xian's scent and almost rushed over. Seeing how agitated Bobo was, Jing Mo knew that the person who got out of the car must be Xia Xian. He stopped Bobo and said, "She's entertaining friends, you can't disturb her. Otherwise, she might stop walking you." Only then did Bobo reluctantly comply, but halfway there, Jing Mo sensed that something was off. Even Bobo seemed to feel that person's aura was very familiar. It was only then that Jing Mo recalled the man driving the car was the same guy who had attempted to harass Xia Xian that night. However, Jing Mo noticed that Xia Xian hadn't argued with the man after getting out of the car, and they were in a group of three. Charging in without knowing the full situation would be inappropriate. He had been absent-minded while walking Bobo, unsure whether he should go inquire about the situation. But guided by Bobo's instincts, Jing Mo was dragged to Xia Xian's doorstep, and it was then he heard the sound of shattered glass from inside. Realizing the situation was dire, he immediately pressed the doorbell. Bobo also sensed that Xia Xian might be in danger, as it had caught the scent of blood. Bobo started barking frantically. Zhao Nan was worried about Xia Xian, but she knew she wouldn't be of any help. If she interfered, it might make things worse for Xia Xian. So when she heard the doorbell, she immediately opened the door. Just as the door opened slightly, Bobo squeezed in and lunged at Zhang Liang, biting his shoulder. Zhang Liang screamed in pain, but Bobo's grip was too strong for him to break free. Seeing Zhang Liang subdued by Bobo, Xia Xian discreetly put away the charming elixir. Jing Mo approached and helped Xia Xian up, inspecting the injuries on her arm. His eyes were filled with tenderness and anxiety, and he even felt a tinge of self-blame. Growing increasingly weary, Xia Xian felt her vision blur and weakly uttered, "Call the police." Then she fainted in Jing Mo's arms. With Zhang Liang now immobilized by Bobo, Zhao Nan assisted Xia Xian, guiding her to sit on the couch. Jing Mo called the security guards of the residential complex to handle the situation and had them and the property management look after the scene. After arranging everything, Jing Mo immediately lifted Xia Xian and rushed her to the hospital. Meanwhile, Zhao Nan cradled the barely conscious Lael and followed them to the hospital. Jing Mo's anxiety was evident as he drove hurriedly, running several red lights and even exceeding the speed limit, determined to get Xia Xian to the nearest hospital as quickly as possible. Chapter 57. 57. The Backlash. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 57. The Backlash Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless fantasy translation. Although Bobo and Lael bickered every day, and it looked down on Lael, it was currently most concerned about Lael. Bobo could sense that Lael was in a bad state, and was even afraid of losing this little companion. So, it accompanied Zhao Nan to take Lael to the veterinary department, while Jing Mo carried Xia Xian to the emergency room. Seeing Xia Xian unconscious, the doctor assumed the situation was severe and temporarily abandoned other patients to attend to her. After a thorough examination, the doctor hung a stethoscope around his neck, instructed a nurse to tend to Xia Xian's arm injury, and then prepared to leave. Jing Mo stopped the doctor and asked, "Doctor, how is my friend? Why aren't you prescribing anything for her?" The doctor replied impatiently, "Your friend is just tired and sleeping. If you really want to give her something, buy her a glucose drink." Before leaving, the doctor added a complaint, "You seemed so anxious when you brought her here, I thought it was something serious. You're just wasting medical resources." Jing Mo apologized quickly, then looked at Xia Xian, who was sleeping soundly in the bed. This girl had a bold heart. She managed to fall asleep even in such a critical situation. Come to think of it, she had indeed experienced a lot today. Both her arms were injured, and she had been through a fight. It was normal for her to be asleep. Jing Mo thought. After covering Xia Xian with the blanket, Jing Mo stood in the hospital corridor and called Sun Hu, "Go to the police station now." Sun Hu was in the middle of a game when he heard about the police station from Jing Mo and immediately became restless. He asked, "What happened? Did you hit and run? Did you hit someone? Bro, you're a celebrity. Your image is crucial. Don't pull a stunt like before." Sun Hu's words became more and more absurd. If he continued, Jing Mo might end up being labeled as a murderer. Impatiently, Jing Mo interrupted Sun Hu. "There's nothing like that. There's a scumbag at the police station. Go take care of him. I don't want him to appear in Xia Xian's life again." Sun Hu finally breathed a sigh of relief and said, "You should have said it wasn't about you. You scared me." Jing Mo's lips curved into a mischievous smile. He casually added, "By the way, I might have run a few red lights just now." "You." Sun Hu was infuriated. He immediately put down his gaming device and left for work. The next morning, Lael emerged from the operating room and was wheeled into the hospital room. Zhao Nan finally had the chance to take Bobo to see Xia Xian. Bobo seemed quite sensible. It knew Xia Xian was ill, so it refrained from barking loudly. With its two front paws on the edge of the bed, Bobo gazed pitifully at Xia Xian, its head resting on its paws. It made a soft whimpering sound like it was saying, "Xia Xian, please wake up. Lael needs you." Xia Xian's fingers twitched slightly, but she still hadn't woken up. Jing Mo had work to attend to today. After entrusting Xia Xian to Zhao Nan, he took Bobo and headed home. Xia Xian regained consciousness around 5 or 6 in the afternoon. Zhao Nan was called to the police station to give a statement, so there was no one with Xia Xian by her bedside. Xia Xian first adjusted to her surroundings. Then, she tried to prop herself up using her elbows, but both her arms were injured, so she gave up on that idea and obediently lay back down. To others, it seemed like Xia Xian had been asleep for a whole day and night, but only she knew her consciousness had been clear. She knew everything that had happened, and she had even heard what Bobo said to her. She just struggled to wake up. Seizing the opportunity while she was alone, Xia Xian immediately questioned the system about what had happened. "Master, using any item from the shop consumes a significant amount of the user's energy. The amount of energy consumed depends on the user's stamina and the affinity needed to purchase the item." Xia Xian understood. No wonder the system had told her that her body's basic attributes needed to increase if she wanted the beast language system to level up. It was related to these things. Xia Xian asked again, "What exactly are the specifics of this connection?" Master, the higher the favorability required to purchase an item, the more energy it consumes. However, if the user's stamina points are higher, the relative energy consumption will decrease. The way to replenish energy is by sleeping. Xia Exayan was concerned. She had only used the enchanted puppet for about 10 minutes and had ended up sleeping for nearly a whole day. She couldn't help but wonder, if I used more expensive items in the future, wouldn't I have to sleep even longer? Chapter 58. 58, Healing Ability. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 58. Healing Ability Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation. Hearing Xia Exayan's doubts, the system explained. The reason you slept for so long this time is that you experienced backlash from being prematurely awakened during the use of the enchanted puppet, causing excessive fatigue. Furthermore, if your attributes continue to improve, energy consumption will gradually decrease. Xia Exayan still had questions, but Zhao Nan returned after completing the statement at the police station. Seeing Xia Exayan awake, Zhao Nan walked happily to her bedside, her eyes welling up with tears, and said, "You slept for so long, you scared me." Xia Exayan's throat was a bit dry, and her voice sounded slightly hoarse. She said, "It's okay, it's just that fighting took too much energy." The police officer from the station entered after Zhao Nan left. "Miss Xia, now that you're awake, we'd like to ask you some questions if you're willing." "Sure." Xia Exayan had Zhao Nan help her sit up so she could answer their questions. After the officer briefly understood the situation and left, Xia Exayan immediately inquired about Lao's condition. Zhao Nan said, "Lao's condition is a bit critical. The kick from Zhang Liang was too strong, and it injured its liver directly. Fortunately, it was brought to the hospital in time, and the doctor performed surgery immediately. It's in the ward now. Lao should be in pain, but it can't make any noise since it doesn't have a tongue." Worried about Lao, and since she was awake and her body was fine, Xia Exayan went through the discharge procedures and then went to see Lao. Lao lay on the hospital bed. When it saw Xia Exayan, it weakly opened its eyes and even extended its front paw to place it on Xia Exayan's palm. It had just undergone surgery, and the blood on its abdomen mixed with dark fur had coagulated into scabs. Every breath pulled at the wound, causing it great discomfort. Xia Exayan tenderly stroked Lao's head. She didn't know if it was her imagination, but she felt that every time she touched Lao, it seemed to become more comfortable. Even its breathing seemed stronger. However, that effect only lasted a few times. After a few strokes, it had no more effect. After asking the nurse, Xia Exayan learned that Lao would need to be observed in the hospital for at least another week. Then, Xia Exayan and Zhao Nan left the hospital. Since it was Monday tomorrow, Zhao Nan had to go to work. Xia Exayan originally wanted to take her home, but Zhao Nan said she wanted Xia Exayan to stay overnight with her. After experiencing the incident with Zhang Liang, Zhao Nan was somewhat fearful and didn't want to be alone. At night, the two of them lay on the bed. Xia Exayan had slept for so long and she couldn't fall asleep now. Zhao Nan was still shaken and couldn't sleep either. Moonlight streamed through the window and cast a faint light into the dark room. Zhao Nan sat up, hugging her knees, and whispered, "Xia Exayan, are you having trouble sleeping too?" Xia Exayan also sat up, and Zhao Nan leaned her head on Xia Exayan's shoulder. Zhao Nan asked, "Do you think I'm stupid? You advised me so many times, but I didn't listen to you. I got into a relationship with Zhang Liang and things got to this point today." Xia Exayan also felt somewhat guilty. If she had known that Zhang Liang was so extreme, she wouldn't have let Zhao Nan know the truth in this way. She feared that Zhao Nan would have psychological traumas when looking for a partner in the future. "Zhao Nan, this is the scum's fault. How can you blame yourself?" Xia Exayan said. Zhao Nan forced a bitter smile, tears flowed from her eyes, sliding into the neckline of Xia Xian's clothes. Zhao Nan said, actually, I didn't like Zhang Liang that much. I always felt strange when I was with him. Many of his demands made me want to refuse, but I still dated him. On one hand, he fooled me, and I didn't know how to refuse. On the other hand, I wanted to prove you were wrong because you didn't approve of us being together. Xia Xian said, I should have communicated with you earlier. Zhao Nan sniffed and said, you were doing it for my own good, that's why you didn't tell me those things. I know Zhang Liang is terrible, but I didn't expect his character to be this bad. I always evaded accepting the fact that he wasn't good because I didn't want to admit that I had bad judgment. Many things between us happened because we never tried to solve them properly, which made things get worse and worse. After this incident, Xia Xian felt like Zhao Nan had grown up in an instant. The previous Zhao Nan definitely wouldn't have been able to say these things. Chapter 59. 59, Long-term guest. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 59. Long-term guest translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation. Zhao Nan sighed heavily and said, sooner better than later. Discovering that Zhang Liang is terrible now is a good thing. I was able to cut my losses in time. If it had been a bit later, we might have gotten married, and then I wouldn't be able to escape. Xia Xian hugged Zhao Nan's shoulder to offer comfort. Zhao Nan's personality was such that she could always find her own equilibrium. She didn't need others' comfort for everything that happened to her, she could pull herself through. She could reason through every situation and constantly improve herself. This was the charm of Zhao Nan and the reason why Xia Xian wanted to cherish this friend no matter what. Because of Zhao Nan's presence, Xia Xian was always inspired to become better. After wiping away her tears, Zhao Nan sat up straight, returning to her usual positive self, and said, let that scum stay at the police station. Don't let him affect our lives. We need to focus on our careers in the future. Xia Xian agreed, you're right. Suddenly, Zhao Nan turned towards Xia Xian and said, I've been busy all day and forgot to ask you. What's going on between you and Jing Mo? You two seem to have known each other for a long time, so why have you been hiding it from, it's not that long, I think. Xia Xian said. She thought about Jing Mo, realizing that since she woke up, she had been busy with other matters and forgot to tell him that she had awoken. Don't daydream, confess the truth. Zhao Nan reminded Xia Xian. Xia Xian honestly recounted the process of how she met Jing Mo to Zhao Nan and concluded, I originally intended to tell you, but after we had a fight, I never had a chance to tell you. Zhao Nan smiled and asked, do you think Jing Mo likes you? Even though it was nighttime and expressions were hard to see, Xia Xian suddenly felt her face heat up and said, Don't make random guesses. Zhao Nan didn't press further and simply said, love is part of life just as humans need water to survive, only the person who's experiencing it knows. She then drifted off to sleep. Xia Xian took out her phone and messaged Jing Mo, Mr. Jing, I'm awake now. Thank you for your help yesterday. When are you free? I want to treat you to a meal as thank you for sending me to the hospital. Seeing that it was already 1 a.m., Xia Xian believed Jing Mo should be asleep. However, Jing Mo's reply came quickly, got it. I'll let you know when I'm available. Now Xia Xian couldn't sleep even more. Her mind was filled with thoughts of whether Jing Mo really liked her. She thought, but we hadn't spent that much time together. How could Jing Mo possibly develop feelings for me? After resting at home for 2 days, the wounds on Xia Xian's arms had mostly healed. The wound had formed scabs, and the cuts from the glass had been stitched up, she just needed to wait a few more days before the stitches could be removed. This didn't affect her usual activities, so she went back to work at the zoo. Mainly, Xia Xian returned to work because she had been overthinking things too much at home. Working would help her distract herself. Xia Xian had been worried that Slowpoke might not eat properly, but when she went to the rockery, she found that its mental state had improved significantly. It was willing to eat the food others fed it as well. Only then did Xia Xian feel relieved. After that, Xia Xian went to the zoo director's office to request to cancel her leave. Lu Yuan saw Xia Xian and said happily, "Xian, you've done well. We'll give you a bonus at the end of the month." Xia Xian was confused and asked, "Mr. Lu, did something happen? Why are you suddenly giving me a bonus?" Lu Yuan explained, "Haven't you been online these past few days?" Xia Xian had been busy taking care of Lael and herself these past 2 days, she didn't have time to check online comments. Lu Yuan said, "The first episode of the variety show has been aired, and the response is great. Online discussions have reached 110 million, you can go and see everyone's comments." Xia Xian opened the online comments and realized that the negative comments from the previous incident had been pushed down by positive ones. Netizens' comments about her had changed from bad to good, with many praising her. It turned out that because Xia Xian took care of the snub-nosed monkey, everyone could see that she truly loved animals. Coupled with her brave rescue, she had gained a lot of positive sentiment. Some comments read, "Xia Xian risked her own safety to save someone and got hurt in the process. Her first reaction wasn't to check her own injuries but to take care of Slowpoke. She's really full of compassion." Another comment followed, "Isn't this the forest princess, Xia Xian from the capital zoo?" Exactly. So when she says she wants to be a dedicated zookeeper and not enter the entertainment industry, she's telling the truth. Some people shouldn't always suspect others' motives. Chapter 60. 60, Another Accident. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 60. Another Accident. Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation. The official account of the Capital Zoo took advantage of the positive comments to follow up with promotional messages, highlighting that all the zookeepers were professionals who loved animals, which garnered more positive sentiment. Since this variety show was animal-themed, featuring animals in each episode and mainly filmed at the Capital Zoo, many viewers were calling for Xia Xian to become a long-term guest. After Xia Xian finished reading the comments, Lu Yuan explained, "The production team contacted me again. They want you to be a long-term guest and technical advisor for the show, responsible for the animal segments. I've also inquired about the compensation. Almost every episode's pay is equivalent to your monthly salary here at the zoo. I think it's a good opportunity. You should consider it." Hearing the compensation offer, Xia Xian was tempted. From the first episode's recording, it seemed she wouldn't need to appear frequently, and it wouldn't be too taxing. More importantly, she would have the chance to interact with animals. After Lu Yuan, the zoo director had previously cancelled Xia Xian's opportunity to study animals throughout the zoo, she rarely had the chance to interact with different animals. With this variety show, she could now connect with various animals to increase her animal affinity points, which was a good thing for her. Xia Xian said, "Since you've already spoken to the director, please contact them to let them know I agree to be a long-term guest." Then, Xia Xian mentioned another matter that concerned her, "Mr. Lu, regarding the investigation into the intentional damage to the rockery, have there been any leads?" Lu Yuan sighed and said, "We've been investigating for a while, but we've had no results. The surveillance footage was tampered with, and we lost all the footage from that day. However, I've informed the production team about this, and they will be cautious. Hopefully, there won't be any more issues." Xia Xian furrowed her brows but didn't press further. At that moment, both Xia Xian and Lu Yuan thought that this incident was simply a case of fierce competition among peers. The schedule for the second episode was announced, and it would take place at the panda enclosure. It was already quite large due to its popularity, making it the largest area in the entire zoo. It could accommodate 200 spectators, doubling the number from the previous episode. Despite the increase, tickets were still quickly sold out. Zhao Nan had initially wanted to try her luck to get tickets, but since she wasn't successful, she gave up. Xia Xian offered to help Zhao Nan get tickets from the director, but Zhao Nan stopped her and said, "You're going to be a long-term guest on this show from now on. If they prepare a ticket for you every time, other staff might start gossiping behind your back. Plus, this episode doesn't have Su Ji involved, I'm not that interested." Only then did Xia Xian realize that she didn't even know who the guests were for this episode. Zhao Nan was speechless and said, "You really pay no attention to the entertainment industry at all. The female guest for this episode is Wan Wan from the previous episode, and the male guest is Mo Shu, who debuted in a boys' band. He's quite popular recently." Xia Xian nodded, somewhat understanding. But in truth, she didn't know who these two were. Zhao Nan explained to her that Mo Shu had acted in a recently popular idol drama in ancient theme, gaining a large following and ranking 10th on the list of hottest male stars. Not fully comprehending, Xia Xian didn't ask further. Zhao Nan was too lazy to explain and just reminded her, "Pay attention to your safety during the recording and try not to have another accident like the last time. Don't worry, accidents are called accidents for a reason. They can't happen every time," said Xia Xian. It's worth mentioning that, as a result of the first episode's popularity and the revelation of the second episode's guest list, online comments about Xia Xian became increasingly positive. Xia Xian's number of fans began to rise steadily, and marketing accounts started creating videos about her. On some social platforms, fans even formed Xia Xian fan groups. Happily, Xia Xian discovered that her affinity points had started increasing again, and the rate of increase was even faster than before. Unknowingly, her affinity points had already reached 30,000. After experiencing the rockery incident, Xia Xian began to attach great importance to reflex. She would increase her reflex attribute whenever she gained enough affinity points, almost immediately. It had now reached 10 points for reflex. The day of the recording happened to coincide with the day she would be picking up Lael. Xia Xian planned to finish recording and leave work early to pick up Lael.